This week on The Insiders, how this Texas man is a main reason why residents in a Carroll County town are banned from getting an abortion. See how he convinced the city council to take action like no Iowa town had before. And Senator Chuck Grassley on the issue of abortion and the challenge of finding common ground, plus that caucus chaos.
Frankly, I was flabbergasted, didn't know what to say. And it doesn't do any good to sort of just lash out. I mean, we need to have a thoughtful strategy to respond to these things because some of the criticisms are just asinine.
So he held his tongue and now he's ready to talk strategy. A former Iowa Democratic Party chair has heard caucus criticism from all sides, louder than ever right now. Hear his thoughts on some possible changes to the caucuses so maybe they can remain first in the nation after all.
From your local election headquarters, this is The Insiders with Dave Price.
So first this week, the connection that 101 residents of the town of Willie in Carroll County now have with the 1,800 people who live in Waskom. It's a town near the Texas and Louisiana border. They both are now among the 49 mostly small rural towns that have banned abortion in their city limits, even if they have no abortion provider in town. Now, Mark Lee Dixon of Texas is the connection for these towns. He's the founder of a movement called Sanctuary Cities for the Unborn. Dixon guides the towns through the language of how to pass an anti-abortion ordinance. He helped Willie's mayor and council do it, even though residents have no facility in town to receive an abortion.
The goal of the council was to act upon what the community had requested them to act upon. And I think the goal of the community was to let it be known and stand up for what they believed or what their beliefs were.
And at this point, there is no place a woman would go to in town to get the procedure, right?
There is not.
Okay.
There's no medical facility in Willie.
So then what's the point of this?
The point is about there are other ways for abortions to happen, and the community wanted it to be known that they do not want any abortion of any kind, whether it's via the mail, medication that's sent through the mail or some other type of abortion to happen within city limits, because the community very strongly spoke at the council meeting that they feel that life is more important than death.
Did you get any legal guidance from staff on, is something like this even legal? Is it valid? Can it stand up?
There were attorneys and legal representation that reviewed the information, yes.
And who were they? Were hired by the city, or who are these folks?
Through the Sanctuary Cities, through Mark's organization.
And going forward here, so now what? Because now you're the first town in Iowa. There's some other ones outside our state. So now what?
Our intention was strictly to do what was best for our community. We are not here to tell other communities what they should be doing, although I do believe that the members of the community and the council who voted felt it important that other communities understand that no matter how big or small you are, you should always stand up for what you believe is right. And the council, very much believed that they needed to act upon what the community requested they act upon.
This is such an intensely personal, often a moral decision. For a lot of people, it's a decision based on their faith. Why decide to weigh into something this sensitive?
Again, it was something that came from the community very, very strongly. There was a lot of people at the meeting from the community, and a lot of people who contacted council members prior to the meeting spoke at our last council meeting in April and felt very strongly that this was what they wanted and that they had elected the members of the council to act accordingly. That's why they had voted them in to stand up for what the community believed in. And so that is, I think that was the intention, and that's what they were trying to accomplish.
As mayor, as you well know, It's tough to please everybody, right? It can often be a thankless job. Yeah, so are you hearing from people who did not want you all to get involved in this?
Actually, we have had nothing but positive response from our community.
Are you hearing from other communities who want to do the same thing yet?
Absolutely. I've had some other mayors reach out to me with questions about the process and how it worked in our community. Other towns that are larger than ours, we're pretty small, so there's probably not anything smaller than us, but definitely larger than ours, both in this area and outside of the Carroll County area.
She said that if her town gets sued because of this plan, it will not have to pay the legal bill since Sanctuary Cities for the Unborn agreed to do that. Now, abortion rights supporters say this town's action is both unnecessary and punitive.
That they serve no purpose other than to instill fear and shame in those who perform, seek, or support abortion. These ordinances largely affect towns that already lack abortion access and are evidence that leaders are out of touch with their constituents and others who have already had to travel out of state or hundreds of miles to access safe and legal abortion care. These scare tactics only strengthen our resolve to protect and expand abortion access across Iowa.
It's an example of how, for some people, something like this really feels like a game. You know, the taking away of rights for people is really just a political stunt for some people, and they're not thinking about the women who will be devastated or afraid or bullied into not getting the care that they deserve. This is a sign of terrifying things to come in the state of Iowa. There was a town in Iowa that could not wait to limit women's rights to make their own healthcare decisions based on a leaked Supreme Court decision. Imagine what will happen if this becomes reality. Imagine what Republicans in this state and the anti-choice minority will do in this state when it actually happens.
Now, is Willie's abortion ban legal since abortion is legal in the state? Well, the Attorney General's office told me that it has not reviewed the town's ordinance and has not been asked to do that. Up next, Senator Chuck Grassley on the challenge of uniting people on issues like abortion.